By now, I assume you've heard, but Fox News is in a pickle. As part of Dominion's lawsuit and other voting companies' lawsuits against them, it's come out in court that Fox was aware that they were pushing election lies. Glenn Kirshner has an excellent take on this that I'd like us to have a gander at. But first, in case you weren't aware, let's have a look at what the folks on CNN had to say. It's given them a bit of a recap.
There are newly revealed text messages that show how some of the biggest names at Fox News actually felt about the bogus election fraud claims that they were pushing at the same time on Fox's air.
So these messages were revealed as in court filings. This is part of Dominion's billion-dollar lawsuit against the right-wing media channel. CNN senior media reporter Oliver Darcy joining us with more. So these documents, perhaps in some ways what they're revealing is not surprising to folks who work in the media, maybe people in Washington, but maybe revealing for a lot of dedicated viewers.
Yeah, I think this court filing, the messages contained in it, really exposed Fox News as.
Just a quick note, I'm a big fan of this Oliver Darcy fella, at least what I've seen from him so far.
Frankly, a propaganda machine in search of profit. You see that the top executives, people like Rupert Murdoch, as well as the top hosts, people like Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, they privately knew and acknowledged behind the scenes that the election fraud claims being pushed by President Donald Trump's campaign.
Oh, now hold on just a minute. That there, and I'm sure he's going to talk about this specifically in a moment, but I want it. That there is Tucker Carlson talking to his fashy friends, saying they should fire a Fox News reporter, so the news division of Fox, for her correctly fact-checking one of the president's, thank God, now former president's, many untrue claims about voter fraud. What does he say? Please get her fired. Seriously, what the F? I'm actually shocked. It needs to stop immediately like tonight. It's measurably hurting the company. Doesn't broach whether or not it's true. Just doesn't help the company's bottom line.
Were bogus. They were not true. And yet, the network allowed these claims to make its way onto their air, and they were shy about fact-checking. In fact, in one case, one of the Fox News correspondents, Jackie Heinrich, the White House correspondent, fact-checked a tweet from Trump pushing election denialism. And behind the scenes, Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity talked about how they could get her fired.
Simply for fact-checking, for doing her job as a reporter when you're supposed to report the truth and put only the facts out there.
That's precisely right. And she wasn't fired. She's still at the network. But that tweet that she did post, fact-checking the president, did eventually come down. I think this shows how void of any journalistic ethics the people at the top of Fox News were. They were not caring about what the right thing to do as a reporter is. They were caring about not alienating their audience. They were afraid of the audience and afraid of Donald Trump. And these messages, they're really quite damning, and they reveal it.
I mean, well said by CNN. Correct. It is damning. Your Fox watching friends and family, if you've got them, will not be aware of this. Number one, link is in the description to this CNN piece. It's only about 4 minutes long. Show this to them. Make sure they see this. Make sure they are aware that they are being lied to. If you have anyone in your life who does not believe the 2020 election was legitimate, and they cite Fox as a reason for believing that, in fact, let's just assume that they are Fox watchers, because, come on, they are. Show them this. I'm not expecting them to have a come to Jesus moment all of a sudden. But boy, this is a big blow to their screwed up belief system. And it's one they're going to have to take because that belief system is frankly incorrect. And we all have an obligation to show them this. If you have someone in your life who is being lied to, make sure they know it, at the very least. This is these three assholes in court having to admit that they're liars. Now, CNN did a fine job recapping this, but let me tell you, my man Glenn Kirshner, he takes it to a place that I feel we should be. We should be behind 100%. You will, if you're a regular watcher of this channel, you will know that despite my loathing for MAGA and Trump and all associations therein, despite my loathing, I try to learn from it. I try to learn lessons from those that we don't like, as well as those that we do, because we are needlessly hampering ourselves if we only take data from sources we're comfortable with. What we had in Donald Trump was somebody who was willing to test the bounds of the system. He did it for nefarious reasons. However, can't be denied that there was useful information to be gained. Here's Glenn Kirshner putting it rather succinctly. By the way, link in the description as well. I highly recommend watching anything Glenn Kirshner does.
So friends, some of the Fox network anchors have been caught. Caught in their own words, caught in...
I'm going to jump past the intro because we just did that.
Of the Fox network anchors have been caught. They've been caught in their own words, in their own internal email communications, caught lying to their viewers, lying to the American people about alleged election fraud in the 2020 presidential election. And those emails demonstrate that they knew they were lying. You know, I wanted to take a few days. I wanted to sit with this story before doing a Justice Matters video about it. I want to start today with the New York Times reporting about these emails, these internal communications being revealed.
I'm going to jump down the line a little bit. Also, because he calls her Ingraham instead of Ingram. But this is great.
Sydney is a complete nut. No one will work with her. Ditto with Rudy.
Just underline that. How little they respected the people they were having on to tell their audience what was going on. They thought Sidney Powell was a complete nut. Then they invited her on anyway.
Mr. Carlson continued, "Our viewers are good people and they believe it," he added.
He added that they believe it, and that's such a bad thing. But he was still going to push it. In fact, he was still going to try to get a reporter fired for daring to not sell that lie. What a scumbag. Glenn, what can we do about it?
They knew they were lies. They knew the viewers believed those lies, but they kept doing it anyway. Why? Well, for ratings, for profit. And friends, these lies they were telling to their viewers, they weren't any old lies. You know, they weren't lying to their viewers about which toothpaste will make their teeth whiter, which soap powder will get their clothes cleaner.
Soap powder? Look, I know I got kind of an old man vibe, but Jesus, Glenn.
They were lying, telling their viewers that their vote had been stolen, their election was rigged, their president was being unlawfully taken from them. You know, figuratively speaking, these Fox anchors were packing the kegs with gunpowder, giving Donald Trump the opportunity to strike the match on January 6th.
True.
and the whole thing exploded into imminent violence at the U.S. Capitol. Designed to do what? Designed to stop the certification of Joe Biden's election win.
Just want to stress, they contributed to the deaths of multiple people. Let's not even go into how many people they killed because of their vaccine denial. Nonsense. On January 6th alone, Fox is responsible for the deaths of multiple people. That, by the way, should be discussed in a court of law. Rupert Murdoch ought to be dragged in front of a U.S. court and quite literally, at a minimum, tried for manslaughter.
You know, friends, Fox probably should have settled before all of these lies were exposed, all of these dangerous lies, these incendiary lies. You know, maybe they could have retained some minimal shred of credibility. But frankly, I care less about how much Fox will have to pay Dominion Voting Systems for defaming them, which they clearly did. I care more about what our federal government will do with these faux news networks, these faux news organizations that knowingly feed the American people these incendiary lies, these explosive lies. Lies that are reasonably likely to incite imminent lawlessness, reasonably likely to incite violent conduct. In fact, they may have even been calculated or intended to do exactly what they did.
I want to pause here so that we can learn a little bit. He has just said in legal terms something I think we've all felt. How many times have you heard somebody say Fox News is dangerous? Is this not what they're referring to? When I say Fox News is guilty of stochastic terrorism, this is what I'm referring to. It is reasonably likely that Fox carrying on the way that it does, saying things that they know are not true, saying not bothering to check because they know they're not going to like the answers, if one of their guests is lying to them or not, and then inviting them back on to lie again. What can we learn from this? We can learn, usually, if something seems galling, if something seems terrible and like it shouldn't be, there is probably already a law on the books that deals with this. And if there isn't, it's time to make one. Let's have Glenn Kirshner break down where he's going, because guess what? There are laws on the books.
Incite violence on January 6th. What is our federal government going to do to address it?
Boom.
So this situation doesn't happen again and again and again, because these faux news networks are still out there peddling lies. You know, friends, the federal government is not a potted plant. The executive branch has some power, has some authority to try to protect the American people against harm. We have the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. They can promulgate regulations designed to get at this intentionally false and dangerous speech being broadcast by these faux news networks. We have the president with the power of the executive order. He can craft and sign executive orders designed to get after faux news organizations that are knowingly, intentionally broadcasting lies about fundamental rights of the American people, like whether their vote was stolen or not, whether elections were rigged or not. Language that they are broadcasting, knowing them to be lies, when those lies are reasonably likely to inspire lawless conduct. When those lies are reasonably likely to incite imminent violence. The federal government is not a potted plant. The federal government can regulate, the president can pass executive orders.
Boom.
And I know people will say, wait. First Amendment. free speech. We can't do anything about faux news organizations intentionally and knowingly broadcasting lies that are likely to inspire lawless conduct. Yes, we can. You know, friends, here's the thing. No, we don't want to trample on anybody's free speech rights. And we know the protections of the First Amendment in the free speech arena are broad and sweeping, but they're not unlimited. And frankly, they should be revisited. You know how we revisit them? The federal government, the executive branch, through its agencies, promulgates common sense regulations designed to put a stop to intentionally false speech by faux news organizations when that speech is reasonably likely to incite imminent lawless action. We pass regulations trying to get at that problem. President Biden signs executive orders trying to get at that problem. And the legal challenges will come to those regulations and those executive orders. Bring them on. We should welcome the challenges in the courts. We should be willing to go into the courts and fight for the American people by taking a position that these were thoughtfully crafted regulations and executive orders. The administration has a lot of deep thinkers, a lot of constitutional scholars available to help craft these narrowly tailored regulations and executive orders. Let the legal challenges come. We can't be afraid to try to be forward-leaning in this day and age of extreme danger to our democracy. You know, we have to embrace the challenge. Just think for a minute, friends, about what the Trump administration did with executive orders. Now, let me tell you, I did a long discussion of this on my audio podcast, also coincidentally called Justice Matters. It just posted this episode.
Before he goes into what Trump did, let me just go back to what he just said. Common sense regulations to protect the American people. I think it's obvious we're in need of that. Fox has a big chunk of this country believing in an alternate reality. We wonder where the cult came from? Roger Ailes, Rupert Murdoch. That's where the cult came from. They have been conditioned not to listen to outsiders. Folks, look at the bite model for cults. That is step one on the road to making cultists. Separate them from any outside information. There are churches in this country which refer to worldly people as evil and untrustworthy, and people you must avoid at all costs. Why avoid them? Well, you might learn from them. You might get perspective from them. Imagine for a moment that you are a right-leaning individual in this day and age, just because that's the culture you grew up in. It's the default for you. So you start off by going to Fox News, and they tell you everybody else is lying to you. Well, you go to the other stations because you're just getting started in learning about these things, and they tell you Fox News is lying to you. But you don't know. You don't understand this stuff yet. You're just getting started. So you've got Fox telling you that everybody else is lying, and you've got everybody else telling you Fox is lying. What do? How do you decide who's telling the truth? A great way to do that would be if there are some consequences for those lies. Because without consequences, to somebody that has a very basic understanding of this, all this looks like is a bunch of big media companies pointing fingers at each other, and what the conclusion they come to seems to be the same for every Fox News viewer, which is, they all do it. They all make it seem like it's a big deal. Fox makes everybody else seem evil, and then they pretend like Fox is evil, but they're just saying these things. No. I care about the issues. real issues like the horde of immigrants that are coming for me. Because it's 2018 and Fox is telling me about caravans. They don't see any evidence. Not evidence of the news stories being presented, because they don't know what that looks like. They don't see any evidence that one organization is bad and the others are not. They don't see consequences, in other words. We need to ensure there are consequences for this behavior, because it is dangerous behavior. It is not journalism, and the protections for journalists are made a mockery of when Fox News gets to use them. What they are doing is not journalism, and it cannot be treated as such. Hit him, Glenn.
And you can get it, as they say, wherever you ordinarily get your podcasts. And I talk about the need to take on this challenge, not shy away from it, because legal challenges will be brought to these regulations and these executive orders. We should welcome it. We should embrace those legal challenges. I call this the RLL, approach to intractable problems, whether it's gun violence or hate speech designed to incite violence. RLL, we regulate, we legislate, and then we litigate, and we welcome the litigation. Now, the legislation piece, it's not all that vibrant at the moment, given the slim majority that the Republicans have in the House, but we'll get back to being able to legislate in a couple of years. The RLL, regulate, legislate, and then litigate. You know what Trump did? Trump used the executive orders, the power of the executive orders, for evil. What was the first thing he did upon taking office? Within, I think, 10 days, he signed his first hateful Muslim ban. He wanted to ban people from coming to America because of who they are, or because of their national origin, or because of the religion they practice. He wanted to ban them. His hateful Muslim ban. So he signed an executive order. And what happened? It got challenged in court and it got blocked. So he took it back and he reworded it and he retooled it together with the help from his hateful cabal, and he promulgated a second one, and it got blocked in the courts.
I don't like the fact that he's using the word promulgated. But yeah, he got rejected. He went for what would be the gold for Republicans. Just ban Muslims. Got rejected. Tried it again. He retooled the legislation, trying to keep the spirit of it in there. And he tried it again. That was despicable for Donald Trump because of what he was trying to do. But the methods that this guy found, we need to use. We cannot, this fight that we are in for the soul of the country, we cannot allow ourselves to use 1900s strategies, because we are in 2023, folks. We're a quarter of the way into the next century. We are doing a disservice to the people that decent legislation would protect by pretending we are in a different century.
He did it a third time, and I believe it got blocked. It took 4 times.
Keep coming back.
For him to get his hateful Muslim ban, banning people from 7 Muslim-majority countries from coming to America just because of the religion they practice.
Yep.
And he found 5 conservatives on the Supreme Court who were apparently just as hateful as him, and they finally passed. They affirmed that 4th hateful Muslim ban. But I think we need to take a page from the Trump administration playbook. You try an executive order that is carefully and narrowly crafted,
Boom.
and you promulgate it, and then you go into court and you defend it. And if you lose, you learn the lessons from the judge, from the court, when they strike down the regulation or the executive order as maybe, stepping a toe over the constitutional line, and you
Promulgate means promote or make widely known. I don't know why you wouldn't just say promote it, but okay.
Work it. And you let the next challenge come, and you go back and you defend it. We can use executive orders and regulations for good the way the Trump administration used them for evil. They weren't afraid to lose in court, and they kept trying until they could get their hateful ban pushed through the courts. Why can't we do the same thing trying to protect the American people? Use the executive order and the power of the regulation for good, and then go into court and defend it. Because if we win in court, well, then the American people win. If we lose in court, we retool, we rework, we redraft the regulation or the executive order, and we go back into court again. And eventually, we're going to convince the judges, we're going to convince the courts that what we're doing in the arena of, hate speech and false speech that is likely to incite imminent lawlessness and gun violence, right, unfettered access to assault rifles and weapons of war, we can pass executive orders and enact regulations and then go into court and fight them.
So I left the link, of course, to Kirshner's full video there. I'm behind it 100%. This will involve convincing the President of the United States to use the authority that he has. Unfortunately, that president is Joe Biden. He fetishizes compromise with Republicans in a way that is dangerous. And it is a big part of the reason why I voted against him in the primaries. I don't have much patience for trying to please. I want to be careful with my language here. Trying to please Republicans. I'm okay with crossing the aisle when there genuinely are things we agree upon. When there are factions of Republicans we can work with to get a progressive agenda pushed. And believe it or not, I think there's a lot of issues that we can do that with. Joe Biden, however, he likes just the appearance of working together. He loves, as we saw with the State of the Union, giving Republicans credit on bills that they worked real hard to kill. If only 2 or 3 Republicans voted with him, he'll say, and I want to thank my friends in the GOP for working with us to get this pushed. I think that's hugely destructive. I think it gives a bad impression of who these people are. But if you tell him, and this is the truth, so it should be a relatively easy sell. If you tell him, if you make it known on social media, for example, if you do a big push for this, that the way to convince GOP voters to vote for you is to show them that there are actually consequences in store for people who are lying, I think you're going to find that that is more effective than trying to please them. You got a bunch of bad kids in class, and you keep saying, oh, no, Trevor, honey, no, you can't. Oh, you can't throw the eraser out in the hallway. Oh, Stacy, no, you can't turn the trash can upside down and then punt it. Does that sound like a class of kids that's listening to the teacher? No. How do you get them to listen to the teacher? You take the baddest kid and you say, all right, principal's office. You're certainly getting detention. I'll fill out the paperwork. You, principal's office. Now, wait there. Anybody else want to mouth off? Okay. Open your book to page yada, yada, yada. They're bad kids. They have a childlike understanding of our current political system. And we need to show them who the bad guys are. Right now, we have a we have a media organization which is pretending to be a news network, and it's nothing but a propaganda machine. We need to create, yes, down the road, legislation, but at the very least, in the meantime, an executive order that makes it clear what they are and punishes them when they try to pretend like they are news. Don't forget, we've already had in court Tucker Carlson arguing that no reasonable person would believe the words coming out of his mouth. We can't leave this only up to civil litigation. It has to be dealt with more seriously than that. Joe Biden doing an executive order would accomplish that. And I recommend that we make it a point to insist that he does.